I guess I could be.
Good evening. Can everybody find a seat, find a friend? We're glad to see this big room full of people. This is wonderful. I'm Mayo Taylor. I'm president of the Blue Ridge Naturalist Network. And for those of you either here in the room or on Zoom who don't know what that is, it's kind of an indirect outgrowth of the Blue Ridge Certificate Program at the North Carolina Arboretum. You can't hear? Okay. And so we're really pleased tonight to have our speaker be someone who's coming out of that program just about to graduate from it. But we'll get to that in a minute. A few notes. I always want to thank Ollie and the Reuter Center for hosting us. We're one of a number of organizations that get free use of this room, this wonderful facility. We get the wonderful help of our student tech workers. We've got Mackenzie tonight, and she will be kind of taking care of us. She's done a great job already. So it's just a very, very valuable service that Ollie provides. And we're, of course, are always happy to include the Ollie students in the Ollie community that hear about our program and attend. And I want to remind people that we have, in addition to this nice attendance here, we have about 25 people on Zoom. And so in the course of the evening, if possible, hold your questions to the end. But if that's not possible, then our speaker will repeat your question, because it's very important that the people on Zoom be able to hear what the question is or the answer doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, those of you on Zoom, if you will put your questions in the chat, I will pass them on to the speaker at the end. I wanted to have our board members stand up, all of them who are here. So this is Paul Fredrickson. You're going to be hearing from him a little bit about our hikes. We've got Chris Stewart here, who's our treasurer. At the back, we've got Nancy Cole, who's our secretary, and we have Marilyn Colton, who's an at-large member. And then we have our community liaison here, Jesse Wilder, who was the godmother of for the entire Blue Ridge certificate program, and then indirectly for the Blue Ridge Naturalist Network. So she's come full circle, and she is doing great work for us. I think everybody knows that you have to get a parking permit, and if you haven't, I can help you with it on the computer possibly, or there's usually a QR code somewhere that you can get it. On one of the tables back here, if you are not currently receiving our monthly newsletter and other bulletins, there's a sheet there to sign up for that. Just need your name and your email address. Write that email address carefully, please, or who knows what will happen to it. And we also have membership forms back there. We have a wide community. Some of them are paid members, some of them aren't. But just so you know, the main benefit of a very expensive $15 annual membership, $25 if there's two of you, is that you get to go on the hikes. And the hikes are kind of the core of our program, and we're going to hear some more about that from Paul in a few minutes. We have a big event coming up every year for now, 5, 6 years, on Mother's Day, which, as you know, is a Sunday. It happens to be May 10th this year. We have a big plant swap and sale. And that means that if you have native plants and you've nicely potted them up and they're viable, you can bring them in and swap them for other native plants. And if you don't have any, you can come in and buy ours, and we're much less expensive than the professional sales, because to reflect the fact that we are mostly amateurs. We do have a special group of plants that will be coming from a professional grower available as well. And our hostess for that, and I'm going to have Charlotte Kaplan stand up, is she holds it at her Montford house, which is worth the trip just to see her beautiful garden. And she has informed me that she personally has 350 plants ready for this event. So there's going to be plenty to pick from. So come on out. Yes, I mentioned this is Adrian is our professional grower, but she doesn't seek the limelight. I know that about her. So it's 39 Cortland Avenue in Montford, May 10th, 9 to 2. 9 to 2. There'll be publicity out on it too. All right. Paul, you want to come up and talk about trips?
Thanks, Mayo. And I'm in charge of the outdoor events, and we've had kicked off this year with 4 great hikes, really focused on the spring ephemerals, which is appropriate. And we went back to 2 locations we hadn't been to last year, Melrose Falls down in Saluda and Big Creek in the Gulf Smoky Mountain National Park. They were great, really enjoyed that. We also went to High Falls, not the one that you're probably familiar with in DuPont. We went to the one on the West Fork of the Tuckasegee. And I think we all enjoyed that. It was a wonderful place. Again, focused on spring ephemerals. So those are the first 4. Now, actually, matter of fact, tomorrow, we're going to go to Givens. And Chris is going to lead us on a little walk over there. Looking forward to seeing more spring ephemerals. The next Tuesday, we're going to have Kitty take us on a birding adventure in Sandy Mush. Then we're going to go back to Cat Gap in Pisgah, looking again for spring ephemerals, and our pink lady slippers will be there in bloom along with some trillium. And then we'll look at Haywood Gap. And so that's going to be our April agenda. We have quite a bit going on. We had quite a bit going on in March and a little bit of April, and this will round out April for us. A couple things on May and June that I want to comment on. We're going to be going to Buck Spring. We were there last year. We'll see some more of the wonderful flowers there, and also hopefully see those strange multi-petal, multi-leafed trillium on the trail. So that'll be fun to see. We're going to go to Cataloochee Divide with Linda Doucette. I don't know if anybody knows Linda Doucette. She used to work for the Forest Service. She's been doing interpretive guiding for the last 20, 30 years. She is wonderful, and she's going to be the guide for us on the Cataloochee Divide. Ron Lance, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ron Lance. He's going to give us a walk in Big Ridge, where he was last year. And Luke Cannon has also been signed up to take us on a little adventure somewhere. We haven't really decided that yet. Other things coming up, we're going to have an outing on ferns, and that will be done by David Phillip. He did the class at the Blue Ridge Naturalist program, but he lost his home in Swannanoa, and so he moved down to Greenville, and so he's not doing the class for the naturalist program, but he has agreed to do it for us. So that'll be a little bit later in the year. Also, we're going to go to Rocky Fork and look for fireflies a little bit later in the year. And also, we're going to go to Roan Mountain with, what? Gary Kaufman, sorry, with Gary Kaufman. So very busy next few weeks, next few months. And I think we need to make sure that you sign up so you can join all of these hikes with us, okay? Thank you. I'm sorry? Yes, we are. Well, you want to talk about that a little bit? Go ahead.
Well, as you can imagine, these trips don't just plan themselves. It's a lot of work. Paul has kind of upped the bar in his years of doing it because we've done more outings in the last couple of years and even more planned for this year. But all good things come to an end, and Paul would like to be able to step off this board and be maybe just an assistant to a program. So if you have a strong interest in hiking, if you're familiar with a lot of trails, certainly think about joining us. If you're not already a member, go on some of our trips. and think about whether you might want to get involved with management of this ambitious program that gets so many of us out. And almost, every time we go out, we've got wonderful, knowledgeable people, both leaders who have specific knowledge and then just the joint knowledge of our membership. So you learn a lot. We move at what we call botanic speed, so it's not a hiking group, but you can learn a tremendous amount. So think about that. Okay, that's enough of the startup. We're really pleased tonight to have Guru Meher Khalsa here. And as I mentioned, he's about to graduate from the Blue Ridge Certificate Program at the Arboretum. And a lot of us kind of assume that everybody knows what that is, but it's a pretty rigorous series of classes that you take on all manner of natural area topics. It actually began here at Ollie. Jesse Wilder, who's here with us, was the founder of it and staff for it. And after 3 years, it moved to the Arboretum, and it was well embraced by their education department. And so people that want to do a consistent study over several years, there are very few people that do it in less than 2 or 3 years, can take a wide variety of classes, and that's what he has done. And 2 requirements as you're winding up is you need to learn how to interpret what you've learned so that you can share it with other people. And you also do a public service project. And he has chosen the public service project of developing this talk about trees. And so we're really, really glad to have him. A few other things to know about him. He's been a yoga teacher for decades and is a yoga therapist through the International Association of Yoga Therapy. And he's written a couple of books on related topics to that. And he's now back in school here at UNCA seeking his creative writing degree. So he's a multi-focused kind of guy. And we're going to turn it over to him.
Thanks, Mel. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just want to really appreciate all of you in the room, all of you, and especially folks I know and some I don't, that founded this program, in our lifetime. And when my mom lived here. In fact, if anybody's been involved with Ollie back in the 80s and 90s, she taught here doing Shakespeare and drama and stuff, Nels Arnold. But I didn't move here. She wanted me to move, but we didn't get out here till 5 or so years ago. And I think it's fair to say nature was my first religion as a kid. And coming back here into Appalachia, I'm really, after being out west in a big city, reconnected and always enjoyed nature in this area. But when I came to live, finding out that I could, in a relatively short period of time, be able to identify all the trees around me and the birds and understand the geology here. So I don't want anybody to be intimidated that it's a fairly rigorous program. Like what my wife and I did was just like, you look at the menu, what classes are up this month or next month, and you sign up and you learn from just amazing experts. And it really speeded up my awareness and appreciation and knowledge of what's going on just when you're walking in the woods. And I want to just plant a seed that while Jesse and Dan and a bunch of you are around, I'd like to see if anybody's interested. I'm not taking it on totally, but I'd like to just put together an article or a little longer piece about the founding of this and just the appreciation of the experts because I see this, Asheville, Appalachia, and these programs, both at the Arboretum and through the network, as really a piece of history of America becoming awakened to appreciation for nature. I mean, Asheville's sort of a destination like that. And I really love thinking about, now I didn't know about having your garden and your lawn be all natives until I moved here. And so anyway, I want to plug the program, and it's just, it deepens your appreciation. And I want to see, might send some emails if anybody's interested in helping or contributing to it, just a, small piece about this thing that I think is part of history. So, thank you guys. So I'll talk a little bit. This meeting is being recorded. Mackenzie, can you hit OK on that so it goes away? If you're up there in the sky. So I gave you the phonetic spelling of my name because it's an unusual one. But I'd like to start with just to talk about a love of trees and appreciation of them. The title comes off of, if anybody knows, Gurdjieff did Meetings with Remarkable Men. And so let's have meetings with remarkable trees. They are just so remarkable. And so let's start with a little interactive exercise. If you're comfortable, we're going to do a little, I was a yoga teacher, so here's a little guided meditation. But if you're willing, just kind of close your eyes, and if that's embarrassing for you, just maybe kind of look down so you can focus. And I'll close mine too, so nobody's looking. So I just ask you to go back into your rich memory of trees, your relationship to trees. And maybe you want to start with many walks and what it feels like to be in the woods. But maybe you'll sort through those memories, recent or since you were a kid, of a tree or a type of trees that you became closer with, that you can remember a vivid experience of. And if you can, then just sort of put yourself back in that. Look around to what you were seeing, thinking, feeling. And let's stay with the feeling part. Like, how did you feel to be there in relationship to that tree or those trees? I'll give you another few moments to just sit there with your tree and your relationship with the tree. Because we all have these relationships. So I want to finish that and just open your eyes. I told you this was an interactive thing, so would anybody share their experience? Like you and your tree? Yes, thank you. Wow. Fondness. She knows, she's a kid, she knows the name of the tree, the type. The helicopters, we can all relate. We know maples too. But anybody else? It's just fun to see. Yes, please.
Chestnut oak.
Swamp chestnut oak.
Sorry. The swamp chestnut oak.
And specific memory with it, or why was it?
I did a
special?
little research, and it's native, and it's in the southeast United States.
Okay.
And I first saw one in Mississippi. I'm now in Asheville, and they're here. So that makes me I have some swamp chestnut oak leaves on the dashboard of my car and in a bowl in the house.
Look at this. So she moved away. She's speaking of it as a family member, right? I'm not so lonely moving away, like my tree is still here. And there they are, like you might bronze the booties of your child or something. So,
Yes.
So these are great examples. I think most of you had some sort of experience like that. So I want to look a little deeper into this relationship that we have with trees. And I'm going to sort of tonight, stanza by stanza, go through this one poem by Mary Oliver. So we're just going to focus, don't want to lose you too much, just on that green section. when I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. So that's her when I'm among the trees. And we're going to go through the other stanzas in a little bit. But so she's really speaking for all of us in a very beautiful way, how they save me and daily. So let's look at some special trees, meet some remarkable trees. Let's see, this way. Is it fading a little bit? Yeah, okay, all right. So here's just, you can go on the internet and look at some big, big trees, giant sequoias. I used to live out near them. Some of the tallest, biggest, oldest trees in the world. And notice, like, the people. Look at this guy like an insect on this tree. Look at these students, we dominate this planet. We can cut those in a minute, and we do. But they're just spectacular. And I'd like to think that we're going to talk a little bit about our relationship to them and how we might adjust that a little bit. So I understand that the Cherokee called them standing people, Itfluga. I looked it up. I think that's a close pronunciation. So saw them, if you live that closely with trees and see them as your equals, they're standing people. They don't walk around, they stand. So it'd be nice for us modern people that have cars and don't seem to need trees, that if we remember them as people. So, yeah, there are elders. This is a specific tree out in California. Methuselah, it's got a name. About 5,000 years old. Not the oldest tree in the world, but pretty old. The location of this tree is hidden because they don't want people messing with it. People would flock around and everything. But so think about this. Trees, according to my research, about 400 million years have been on this planet. Well, let's compare that to us. I'm going to go modern humans, 300,000 years. My math is off. That should say 5.7. But they've been figuring things out. I mean, think about that. What did you do when you were little? You figured out how to walk, to eat, then later, maybe date or balance your checkbook or something. We figured out how to live here, and as a species, we've done that. But they've been doing that for a lot longer. So they really have intelligently, I'm going to use that word, which not everybody's comfortable with, that anthropomorphizing, but they really figured out a lot about how to live on this planet. And maybe we can learn something from them. So here's another elder. Has a name, Pando, the trembling giant. Look how big. This is a clonal colony. There are 47,000 genetically identical stems that, look at this, trying to figure out how old it is. Well, somewhere between 9,000 and 80,000. That's how distant we are from really understanding, trees. But what a survival strategy. I could live for 80,000 years if I just clone myself and we just take over the whole neighborhood, Just trying to think about trees in a little different way. So are trees and plants intelligent? Now, if you look up, even today, scientists debate a lot. Let's just start with animal intelligence. Like there's debates about, are dogs intelligent? And there's guys that have them, pretty much writing Shakespeare, it's an exaggeration, but doing a lot of amazing things. But when we say, try to define consciousness or intelligence, we really have a hard time looking at it in any other way than our version of it. So I want to see if we can broaden that a little bit and see that trees and plants have a lot of intelligence. They figured out a lot of stuff, and maybe we can learn some of that from them. So think about it. They eat light. So imagine a solar cell runs your your battery, your lights or something. So what if you just could go around and go like, okay, I don't need to eat. I'm fine. That you could produce your own carbohydrates that we all depend on. They don't have to roam and hunt for food. Comes to them. Pretty smart. You can argue, well, what if the rain doesn't come? We can go find it, but still, pretty good strategy. They have versions of 5 senses, and we'll get a little more into that, not in great detail. But they do, in fact, feel, taste, touch, all those 5. They do it. They have a skin, they have limbs, they have respiratory and circulatory systems. These are things we would say about ourselves. They mate, reproduce, they care for their young. They have many creative survival strategies. I think I'm going to mention here, I'm going to show you a bibliography a little later, but this book by Peter Wallenben, The Hidden Life of Trees, I guess it was a bestseller at some point, is subtitled What They Feel, How They Communicate, and Discoveries from a Secret World. This is a German man that was a forester. So his job was to cut the forests and make them produce for us. And then after 20 years or so, he said, wait a minute. And now he runs this organization where he teaches, preserves old growth forests, teaches people and everything. And this is where there's a lot of research. He's the one that figured out a lot of this stuff. It's a really great book that sort of, I would say, seeded my interest in this presentation here tonight. They live in communities in which they compete, cooperate. We could be saying this about human beings. They communicate with, share resources, and feed each other, and they care for their sick. And I know many of you are experts that could get up here and give a whole lecture about any one of these things. I mean, it's real. What else might they know about living here on Earth that we might be able to learn? I just put down a few words that I associate with trees and the way that I feel with them. Maybe some of you felt these things in your memory of your tree, but I mean, they're so simple, patient. I mean, they outlive us, many of them, right? They just sit there and wait for the rain. Peace, contentment, coexistence, resilience. I mean, after Helene, just go look at trees that were, completely leveled down. And what do you see? There's a green shoot coming up out of that root. We can't grow a new arm, right? They can't. So, again, want to expand our sort of very, what's the word, human-centric way of looking at these things. Still fading? Okay, that sounds too loud to me, but just remind me anytime, that's fine. Second stanza, Mary Oliver, I'm so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. So she's saying, I'm just really busy and stressed. I don't do this thing, the last line, that I want to do. So now, I don't know. Some of us are retired. We live in a beautiful place. But most of us have lived in a city, and most of the world lives in a very busy way, where we could maybe relate to what she's saying, that we get stressed out. And so we're going to look at how maybe trees can help us come down from all that. So just a little dip into the dark side here. 50% of people live mostly in concrete, around concrete. And in just 25 years, 2/3 of the planet will live with much less nature than most of us enjoy. And it's hard to say, on average, 2,400 trees cut each minute around the planet. So these are some not pleasant, well, I don't know, maybe you liked living in Chicago, nothing wrong with it, but so as intelligent and valuable as trees are, we're sort of moving away from them, standing people and dependence on them. So, but nonetheless, in spite of these trends and how we might treat trees, where did I go? Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches. So the trees are calling her back now. So let's talk about that in spite of what I've said in those concrete pictures, we all have biophilia. What a great word. The innate desire to connect to nature and other living things. Happens to be my daughter celebrating that her mushroom farm bore its first shiitakes, and I thought her smile showed how we love nature. So why are we so, why do we have biophilia? Well, they're biological, we're biological. But think about, you got to go back a little while because we feel, separate from this now. But for most of humanity's existence and back into earlier evolution than that, we depended on trees and plants for food, medicine, shelter. I mean, my house is still built out of wood, right? Warming with fires, cooling with the canopy overhead, purifying our air and our water, and giving us the air that we breathe. Okay, so yeah, we're connected, we're dependent. A lot of us have lost the sense of that dependence. So just a little aside, like this is a theory on how we got sort of where we are. So when we were hunter-gatherers, we just moved and we depended on what was there, plants and animals. Sheep, let's say maybe it's a deer at that time, but humans hunted a deer to eat and live, right? But if we ruined their environment or overfed on them, then we were in trouble. So we were dependent and we felt more equal. We had to adjust. The word superhuman order means things bigger than us, like the whole situation, right? So we preyed on sheep, lions preyed on us, or bears, or whatever. So we were sort of equal in status, interdependent. So we had to adjust, we had to cooperate. Well, then we became farmers, right? So as farmers, we owned that sheep. We owned that corn or that crop, right? So we became their superiors. We were no longer on the same level. We're like the masters. So we began to see that nature exists to serve us. And this is from a book called Sapiens by Yuval Harari. Yuval Harari. And it's in the Bible, right? It's all here to serve us. So that's how we shifted, I'll say, is my point with this, to maybe not respecting, honoring, or being in balance with. But nonetheless, not everybody likes The Giving Tree as a book, but, trees keep giving. So, nonetheless, the forest heals. So, I'm sorry I don't remember if this is the guy, but pretty much the way I read it, one man in Japan kind of came up with this idea not that long ago of Shinrin-yoku, forest medicine. And we're going to look at this book called The Nature Fix. So this woman went to, in Japan and Korea. This is a really advanced science, forest medicine. So doctors there prescribe time in the woods. There are, I think, Japan, half of its national or protected forests are now considered therapeutic or medicinal, whatever the word they use for it, and they want to move them all that way. So if you look at the history of Japan and just how most people lived in the cities and were very stressed and a work ethic and everything, and so they're sort of the ones that needed this and sort of discovered this thing. So most of you have heard of this now, and it's just simply a practice of therapeutic relaxation, spending time in a natural atmosphere. It doesn't have to be deep woods. focusing on your senses to connect to nature. So in this book, I'll show you later the cover of it, but there is substantial research that spending time in nature can do all these things for your nervous system, reduce stress, even mood and depression, provide rejuvenation, promote overall happiness. So again, think back to when I asked you to remember an experience with a tree. Some of this stuff was happening to you. Some of it happens when we go walking with Paul every week, like it's happening. So how does nature heal us? Well, there's a few things we can mention. There's many, many ways, but color therapy. So greens and blues, you can, hook somebody up and watch their brain, and just seeing green and blue reduces stress and improves mood. Well, think about if you can put yourself in the position of a primitive person, like you were always around greens and blues, and they always meant food, they meant water, they meant sunshine, they meant good things. So our brain, we're not so far removed from that. How many generations? Not so far. So your brain still recognizes that, whether you do or not. So what else? Phytoncides, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So the compounds that trees release in the air, they're doing it for their purposes, but they also have effects on us. And this is also very researched. They did one experiment. They took a bunch of people, this is in the Nature Fix. Is it Nature Fix, the Nature Cure? It's coming up in a minute, we'll see. But put people in hotel rooms and maybe close the windows, they couldn't see any nature or anything, and just pumped some phytoncides from various, I think they used conifers for some reason. And then they measured people. And in many metrics of stress and health, they improved. They didn't know it, they were just smelling this thing. So that happens to you, whether you know it or not, when you're walking in the forest. What else? Fractals. Fractals are sort of a mathematic, scientific term. They're repeating patterns. So the idea is that this branching looks the same as the next branching, as the next, as the next, as the next. And so that does something to our brain. We see it, think of snowflakes, leaves and trees, the way they branch out. These patterns, again, just affect the brain because our brains recognize our kinship to the natural world. Interesting that the forest benefits whether we know it or not, whether we even don't even like walking in the forest. It's that sort of generous if you want to give it some, optimal human characteristics. So studies show that the very presence of trees improves mood and performance. There was one study I remember where kids that could just, in the classroom, see a tree out the window perform better behaviorally and academically than kids who could not see any tree or green. I mean, can you believe that? So this is happening no matter how participating we are, but we can increase the effect through forest bathing. And what does that mean? Okay, slow down. Like I went to Catawba Falls the other weekend, and it was gorgeous, and there was some great ephemerals coming up and such. But most people just want to get to the falls, and I'm not, judging. I'm better than them, but most people are just, like talking and getting it. Okay, they're still getting all these benefits, no problem. But it's so much. If we want to enhance these benefits, we slow down. We be present more than thinking about the past or the future problems that we have. We be here now, let our thoughts focus on what's here. And that's why these walks are so great when you go with a naturalist, because what's the term you said? We're going at the botanical speed, I went with some folks recently, and people were just whizzing by us, and we're like, oh my God, look at that. And so really paying attention and using all five senses. So that's even something that many of us that appreciate nature a lot don't always do is like, we'll check in, okay, visual, we're all going to do that. But, take it in like, oh, that's so beautiful. Sound, is it the wind in the trees? Is it, you see here some insects and that kind of thing? A little more obscure, but very, feel the different barks, the smooth beech or the rough pine, and just, be in touch with it. Taste, I'm not going to recommend, I do a lot of tasting when I'm in the woods, and, you can be careful about what you put in your mouth, but it's there, and you can do it. And what did I leave out? Smell. Crush a little leaf and smell it. So involve all your senses. And this mindfulness means that your mind is here. It's not in some problem somewhere else. So there's ways we can all benefit more from the thing that the forest gives us anyway. Well, guess what? There's a nature prescription. So I'll actually go through this because, there's research behind this. It's not just somebody going like, this is a good idea. So daily, find something, look at the picture. So you can still be in the city, but maybe in your room, you've got, in your house, you've got some plants, but get outside in some gardens, neighborhood parks, fountains. This can be in an urban setting. Notice birds, even the city. 30 minutes a day. Again, we live in Asheville, so this is probably easy for most of us, but let's go for it. So once a week, spend 2 hours a week in a bigger, wilder place, like you see the city sort of farther. So around the lake, maybe you live in town in Asheville, but you walk around Lake Julian or something, so a little more nature, less civilization. So how about this, once a month? So compare your thing, not like it's a test or a competition, but 1 weekend a month, go to a restful natural area, national park, lakes, rivers, with minimal urban intrusion. Okay, I think I'm still good with that, but how about once or twice a year, take at least a weekend or more deep in the wilderness. Now, maybe you're not wanting to camp anymore, but, a cabin out there somewhere, or, how would you do that? So, I don't know, it's just kind of fun to think of, again, I'm in a more nature-centric group. Originally, my plan is to present this more to younger, like high school or middle school people, and maybe even urban kids, and sort of interest them in this. So I'm a little preaching to the choir here, but we can still think about I haven't done that in a while. Maybe my prescription needs to be filled. All right. Well, now I just want to just look at maybe how we can give back and acknowledge some organizations around town. That Greenworks is just amazing. I love their Treasure Tree program. I'm going to talk a little more about that in a moment. You can adopt trees. You can nominate treasure trees. They give away trees all the time or sell them cheaply. I was just at some place getting some food, and they had just trees out there and said, take a tree. And I planted that thing. So pretty cool organization. What else? Oh, this is a Treasure Trees program. So if you don't know about it, you can nominate one. You can visit them. This is an ordination where these people are, putting up this. This is a young man out at the, if you know Flying Cloud Farms, David, and he, on his property, his family's property, they have like 6 or 8 of these things. I went out there and interviewed him for this, and this was some time back. This is a 250-year-old beech tree that he played in when he was a kid. And again, he just walked me around and just these beautiful treasure trees. So you can, not everybody wants, you can have one on your property and nobody, you don't have to tell people where it is, so they're visiting it. But here, the Swannanoa Valley Tree Alliance has a treasured tree map. It shows you how to nominate a tree, how to, let's see, I think on the other side of this was a map if you wanted to go see just some spectacular trees in our area. So again, people that are doing things that we can do with them. These are some of the books that went into this or inspired me. Light Eaters, How the Unseen World of Plant Intelligence Offers a New Understanding of Life on Earth. I mean, this will kind of blow your mind pretty nicely. This is the Nature Fix, a lot of that research that I talked about. Easy read and just amazing. Again, Peter Wallenben's book that really talks so much about if you want to look at, well, do they really taste and smell and talk to each other and all that? That's very good. Now, this book, I believe there are people that know more about this than me, but I believe this is the woman that really discovered the fact that all right, Dan, come on up. I'm going to call that some have now coined the Woods Wide Web, right? So the fact that these, here. So if you guys don't know Dan Lazar, founding member, and he was my ecology teacher and led many of the programs that I took at the Arboretum. And I just love your presentation on the Woods Wide Web. So if you'd speak about that, I'd appreciate it. Got to go green right here. There we go.
Thanks, Gurmir.
And you gotta
Thanks,
be close.
Gurmir. Can you hear that?
Yep.
Okay. To understand what's going on in the soil, in the forest, first we have to understand a little bit about the soil, what soil is. And we've all learned in school that soil is made of sand, silt, and clay. Okay. Now, if you could imagine sand being the size of a house, a grain of sand, and silt being maybe the size of a garbage truck, at that scale, clay would be about the size of a Necco wafer. Remember Necco wafers? So clay is also a flat mineral created in the soil which has an electric charge, and it holds some of the plant nutrients with that electric charge. It's a storehouse of nutrients. Okay, but soil also includes living organisms. So at our scale, where the sand is the size of a house, an earthworm would be about the size of the Hindenburg, stretched out for about a mile. Picture an earthworm that big. Okay, now we're getting our scale of what's going on in the soil. Okay, plant roots at that scale would be about the size of, say, a tanker truck going down the highway, except stretched much longer. And even the finest root hair would be about the size of, does anyone remember the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile? Picture that wiener on top. That would be like a root hair. Okay, at that scale, fungi, look at your little fingernail. They're about the size of a fingernail. So fungi are much smaller than the smallest root. The root are pushing through these houses and SUVs and refrigerators, and they're not in intimate contact. But a fungus can get right down there next to the clay, get in between any particle in the soil, get into the organic matter, and fungi are specialists at absorption. Well, if you trace a lot of the fungal hyphae back, you'll find them connected to plant roots. And the fungi act as a vast extension of the root system, much more intimately entwined with the soil, specialists at absorption, supplying most of the water that enters the plant, and also bringing most of the nutrients that enter the plant. So plants and fungi have evolved together into this relationship. Okay, getting to the point, these fungal hyphae also fuse with each other in the soil. They fuse together, they pass nuclei to each other, they pass organelles to each other, and they also grow into the roots. They grow under the epidermis. They go through the cell wall of the root. They get right up against the plasma membrane, and they branch out like fingers poking into a balloon or something, and they're very tightly connected with the plasma membrane of the plant, very intimately contacted with the plant, intimately contacted with the soil, bringing water and nutrients to the plant. In return, of course, the fungi are absorbing sugar, which is brought down to the roots from the plant. So it's a mutualism. They're both benefiting. Well, relatively recently, you mentioned Suzanne Simard. She was out at the University of, Washington, and she wanted to see if some of the nutrients produced in Douglas fir trees came down and were transported to younger Douglas fir trees. So she went out in the woods with her carbon dioxide, radioactive carbon dioxide, put that in a little tent on a branch on a Douglas fir, had her Geiger counter and her bear spray, and just waited. These things move like, 5 feet per hour through the tree, and waited and then measured radioactive carbon dioxide in some of these smaller trees, showing that there's transport between one tree and another through this underground fungal network. And so another more recent experiment was done, I think, at Duke University, at Duke Forest, where they did the same thing, radioactive carbon dioxide in a sugar maple, and they saw that it turned up a few days later in trout lily, not even another related plant. And so why would this happen? Well, there's sugars being transported down to the fungus, taking into the fungus. The fungi are merging with each other in the soil. And is this a mutualism? Perhaps. The trout lilies, as we know, come out very early in the spring before the sugar maples have leafed out. Some of the sugar produced in the trout lilies might find its way into the sugar maple, giving it a jump start on its growing season. In the fall, when the trout lilies are back underground, some of the sugar made in the sugar maples can make its way through the fungal network down to the trout lilies. So anyway, people are comparing this to the World Wide Web and calling it the Woods Wide Web. And so sugars can be transported, also plant growth regulators, sometimes called plant hormones, growth regulators, and other chemicals can be transported from one plant to another. For example, some trees, when they're attacked, say, by bark beetles, they release chemicals into the air. Other trees can pick up these chemicals, and they produce their anti-insect compounds and get some sort of protection. Of course, insects can also detect these chemicals in the air, and they can zoom in on the affected plant by tracing these chemicals. But if these chemicals go through the Woods Wide Web, they're not detected by insects, and it's an alternative method of communicating. So to make a long story short, there's this intricate network in the soil connecting trees and other plants in a tight network with the node. Each tree is like a node on the internet, and they can be connected with dozens or hundreds of other plants in the forest. All this going on below our feet, underground, and another miracle of nature that we're just starting to realize how important it is. So anyway, back to you, Gumer.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. So another plug for the program that I just took, you're just walking through the woods with Dan and he lays that on you and you're like, what? So, and a lot of that happens on these walks too, that the network does. So, yeah, thanks for the expertise there. And so we're wrapping up here. Let's finish with Mary. And they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into this world to do this, do what we're doing, the trees, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Sweet. A year ago about this time, me and my family went out to the Joyce Kilmer Forest. It's like one of the few, old growth forests. So you can see these huge 250-year-old tulip trees. We call them tulip poplars sometimes. And you can go just be amazed, and you can go hug a tree. Want to just, what's that? Just want to thank you all for loving trees and maybe for coming and listening to this tonight. We've got time for a few questions and answers if anybody wants to, or just share, like, hey, maybe you know something and want to share with us. Anybody? Yes, sir. Let me give you a mic.
I want to say something about trees.
Right up to your mouth, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I want to say something about a specific tree.
Yay.
I worked in the Sibley Gardens for 2 months for 20 years. And I passed this tree very often. And it was called the Buddha tree, and its botanical name includes religiosity. So this tree is a tree of religion, and Buddha was aware of this, very aware of this. Well, a wind came up, stirred up the bay where the tree was, and the tree fell over. And the organization, Selby Gardens, decided to resurrect the tree, partly because of its association with Buddha and partly because of the name religiosity in it. And they were influenced religiously by this tree. These are a group of people who are wealthy and are used to power, and they decided to hire a boat. They brought in a huge barge with a huge crane, and at great cost put this tree back in place.
Wow.
And now you can go there and sit under it yourself.
And where is this?
In Selby Garden in Sarasota, Florida.
Great story.
Yeah. So that was it was impressive because the tree had the power to influence a group of humans.
Sort of humble them.
These are hard-headed people. These are not softies at all.
That's a great story. And whoever named that tree, felt that religiosity, right?
We've
Anybody
got
else?
a couple of questions from chat.
Okay.
The first one that came in when you were having everybody think about their own tree
Nice. Yeah.
was that this person has a special fondness for dogwood trees and would like to know if you know anything about the origin. And the second one just came in and asks what your favorite tree is.
Wow. Well, give me a second on that one. And there's many things we can say about dogwood. Who here would like to do that? Somebody? Jesse. Want to speak about dogwoods? Well, then please do.
First of all, I think dogwoods are having a great year right now.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful.
And it wasn't long ago that we thought we might lose dogwoods to, was it anthracnose, Dan? Yeah, anthracnose. And they've turned out to be quite resilient. And there's lots of legends with the bracts of the dogwoods. They are bracts instead of petals, but that is related to the crucifixion, I believe, where you're seeing the limbs of Christ in the blood, and then the resurrection in the spring. And I remember learning from Dan one way to do winter ID with the dogwoods is to look at fish scale bark. It looks kind of like fish scales.
Yeah.
And they've been hybridized, and so we have now pink that we see all over. And just beautiful mountain trees. I think that it's still the North Carolina state tree. What else can we say about dogwoods, y'all?
I have a memory to share. The very first time I came to Western North Carolina was not quite 40 years ago. And it must have been in spring. And I remember walking into some woodland. And there was the ground, and there was the tree canopy above. And in between, maybe 20, 25 feet high, was this layer of white. And that was the dogwood trees scattered among the bigger trees in a fairly mature forest, as this mid-story tree. And there were so many of them. And they weren't flowering like a horticultural dogwood, carefully planted. But it was enough to produce this white layer between the ground and the canopy. And that's what's gone. I was thinking about it as I walked through the woods just the other day. The dogwoods are thriving on the edges of forest where it's drier and this arachnose fungal disease can't can't dominate them and kill them. But deep in the woods, where they used to be, you don't see them there anymore. But do other people whose memory of walking in the woods in North Carolina, in the mountains, probably goes back way before mine, surely remember this feature of the woods.
Yeah, thank you. In the forest where I live, they're still they're there competing, and very different from what you see when they've got a full field to grow in. But anyway, there's some around me. Yeah.
I live in Mars Hill, and I'm up and down Highway 26 every day, and there must be 20 or 30 dogwoods along Highway 26 beyond exit 19. And I just sail up and see all those. They're like white floating in the air. I also wanted to talk about an event that's coming up for Arbor Day. It's at the Center for Spiritual Living on Brevard and Bear Creek Road. They have a 350-year-old oak tree up on the hill, and it is huge. So they're going to be doing a ceremony, and it's on April 24th, a Friday night at 6 o'clock, for anybody that's interested.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, so my favorite tree, I ran this by my daughter last night just to kind of practice, and I asked her the same question I asked you. And she talked about when she grew up in LA and just all, we were in the city and it was all concrete, but in our yard, we had a willow tree. And she talked with me about just how when she would be under there, and you know how the willow kind of drapes down, so you're in a little fort kind of how she just felt at home and safe right there in the middle of the city. And then she said, now wherever she goes, she notices willows and that they make her feel, sort of safe and at home. So I also have a very early spring memory tubing down Peachtree Creek near my house in Atlanta, and there was just the first little willow leaves of spring, and they were just blowing in the wind like this. And I thought, that is spring, and I'm going to remember that forever. And I have. So I think we're at time, Mayo, and so we'll just wrap it up. But I want to thank everybody for helping me graduate my program. And, yeah. So any closing remarks here?
Thank you all for coming. It's been a wonderful talk. And we had 30 people on Zoom with us that were also listening to this and weighing in. So this is our last speaker program for a while, where during the summer we don't do them. But do remember our plant sale, and we'll hope to see you again.
All right, thank you. Thank you.